Hey, what's happening everybody out there? I'm Jakejames Lugo and welcome to the channel. You could call me JJ. So Kingdom Hearts is a franchise that's resonated with a lot of people all over the world, myself included. I've been there since day one of the series and have talked about it in a variety of different places, both in podcasts, videos, and even written a few editorials about the franchise. But I haven't done a complete review quite like this one, and now's as good as a time as any. So for the sake of this review, we're going to stick with Kingdom Hearts Final Mix, since this is the most recent and the most accessible version of the game. But without further ado, this is Kingdom Hearts. You'll never know who you'll run into next. Those were the words that stuck with me long after I watched the commercial for the very first Kingdom Hearts game on PlayStation 2. Kingdom Hearts is a massive collaboration between Final Fantasy developer Square Enix and Disney. The game's ultimate premise is the crossover between the Final Fantasy series and classic Disney movies that you know and love. The game's story centers around Sora, a young boy who has mysterious dreams and aspirations for visiting the worlds beyond his home on the Destiny Islands. He and his friends Riku and Kairi plan to build a raft together to leave the island and visit places far beyond, but a stormy night leads to some weird turn of events that will take him on an adventure spanning many different worlds and popular Disney character interactions. It's a game that not only plays with your nostalgia for classic Disney movies, but presents you with a story with a lot of flair, style, and amazing music that Square Enix has always been known for. Now, the story of Kingdom Hearts is not as convoluted as later entries of the series. In the very first game, they focused a lot more on the relationship and the crossover between Disney and Final Fantasy characters, more specifically Final Fantasy characters from Final Fantasy 7, 8, 9, and 10. Now, while not all the different types of characters from those games make an appearance in the first game, you could still see a lot of the more popular and much more well-known characters get their time to shine. But even more importantly than that, particularly about the first game in the Kingdom Hearts series, is that it really leans a lot more heavily on the Disney aspect of stuff, more so than it did on the Square Enix side of things. So because of that, you get a lot more focus on the stories that you get from traditional Disney movies, as opposed to original stuff or even well-known stuff about the Final Fantasy and the Square Enix properties. And even then, besides that, you still get a couple characters that you really come to love. I love actually, seeing the growth of Sora and his relationship with Riku and Kairi, as well as some of the other characters that he comes across throughout the entirety of the game. A lot of people really got into Kingdom Hearts because of the Disney and Square Enix collaboration. A lot more people stayed with Kingdom Hearts because of its gameplay. The gameplay of Kingdom Hearts is done in real time. You can move around and attack enemies whenever you want, as well as cast magic and summon new and old friends to help you out. You party up with Donald and Goofy, who stay with you throughout the entirety of your journey throughout every single world. There are moments where this changes, but most of the time Donald and Goofy have your back. The battles could get fierce, especially when there are many enemies on screen attacking from all directions. However, it never becomes too overbearing to the point that the fights get annoying. There are some good challenges here, especially in parts later on in the game, but it's a steady climb for the majority of the time. Boss fights could get really intense, with a few exceptions that feel a little bit dull and overly repetitive. It's cool to smack around some of Disney's most iconic villains, even if a few of the battles could be a little too basic. The only major gripe that I have with Kingdom Hearts' gameplay are the gummy ship levels. To me, these are way out of place in comparison to the rest of the game and can be very dull to play through when you have to travel between the worlds. Later games made these sections a whole lot better, but in Kingdom Hearts they can be a real drag compared to everything else. They are so dull that you don't even need to modify the gummy ship to get through them even in later sections of the game, which kind of defeats the whole purpose of including it to begin with. While I know people still love these sections, they are hands down the weakest aspect of the game to me. Now, the combat of Kingdom Hearts is a little bit more free-flowing than what was going on with Square Enix games at the time. Back then, Squaresoft was mostly known for releasing turn-based combat systems or active battle time systems with their Final Fantasy games. So when Kingdom Hearts came around, it allowed people to be a little bit much more open and give them more options for doing different things in combat or even just moving around the game in general. It didn't feel so restrictive compared to the turn-based systems and the active battle time systems that were released back then with games like Final Fantasy X or even Final Fantasy 7, 8, and 9. You're able to kind of move around the world a lot more openly and freely and kind of feel like a lot more sense of like one-to-one control where things were a lot more responsive as opposed to being so restricted with the overworlds that you saw in most Final Fantasy games. Now, I'm not going to beat around the bush. The platforming in the original Kingdom Hearts is not all that great. Even with the final mixed versions of the game, the platforming feels a little bit too stiff, feels a little bit too weighty, and compared to other games later on in the franchise. Things kind of got a little bit much more better, and you were able to kind of do more and reach other higher and much more inaccessible places with later games in the Kingdom Hearts series. But the very first game always felt like there was some stuff that was there that they just didn't always get too right. Now, the more important thing that we have to talk about with Kingdom Hearts is the combination between Disney and Square Enix, and that comes from the worlds themselves. The worlds of Kingdom Hearts offer a wide array of locations to visit and explore. You get worlds based on a number of classic Disney films, like Alice in Wonderland, The Little Mermaid, Hercules, Aladdin, Peter Pan, and many more. There are a few worlds based on some of the modern Disney films, but nothing too much pulled from the CG era of Disney, with The Nightmare Before Christmas being loosely included. While the worlds are colorful, bright, and populated with a ton of fan service, some of the worlds are a little bit poorly designed with their layout. Some places could be a little bit confusing to navigate, especially without the use of a map and some areas being way too similar to others. Even after playing this game so many times, I still occasionally find myself getting lost in some of the worlds because of how weirdly laid out some areas can be. My least favorite of the worlds is probably Atlantica, which is based on The Little Mermaid. You not only lose most of your abilities as Sora because of everybody turning into a mermaid, but it can be a real pain trying to get from one place to another, especially when you can't figure out where exactly you are. This greatly extends the amount of time that you spend in that world and can really pad out some of your game time. I'm not gonna lie, I love the variety that you get with the first Kingdom Hearts game compared to later games in the series. I always felt like there was a lot of different types of worlds that you visited, even though they were mostly based on 2D Disney classic movies, but I always felt like you were going to a variety of different types of places rather than just sticking to one central theme or one central type of area. But overall, there's a lot of different places you're going to be visiting, there's a lot of different characters you're going to be interacting with. However, there is one thing I do want to harp on a little bit that I felt like is a detriment to the total experience. You mostly get a lot more Disney-oriented stories rather than original stuff that you did see in later games in the series. You also don't get a whole bunch of the Final Fantasy-related stuff, even though you do get a few interactions here and there, but they're not really the central focal piece and there isn't a lot of time that's devoted to them. You do have a couple battles that appear both in the Colosseum as well as also in different worlds that you come across some of the more popular Final Fantasy characters, but they never really widely impact the story compared to what they do in both Kingdom Hearts 2 and other entries of the series. Now, the one thing I do have to talk about with Kingdom Hearts 1, which is a hugely important part of this whole entire franchise, is the music. I vividly remember listening to the track by Utada Hikaru and then hearing all the Yoko Shinomura tracks while I was playing through the game. It just felt so different, it felt so right, it felt so awesome, and worked very well with everything else that was happening on screen. Even to this day, I still have a bunch of the soundtrack on my iPod and all of my iTunes and stuff that I listen to from time to time. I just think it's great music that's really resonated throughout the rest of the series. We've heard countless versions of Simple and Clean, we've heard a bunch of other versions for some of the battle tracks and other worldly tracks that you hear inside the first Kingdom Hearts game, including Hollow Bastion and a few others. Now, don't get me wrong, a lot of this is mostly associated with some of the worlds and the events that you actually get involved with Sora and some of the stuff that happens in the story, but you do have to acknowledge that the music of this game is phenomenal. It's really great, it's a joy to listen to, it works well with some of the events that are happening on screen, and it just is something that really sticks with you long after you're done with the game. One of the other things I do have to talk about a little bit is some of the additional content that comes with Kingdom Hearts, not just the original game, but also Kingdom Hearts Final Mix. The optional stuff you can do in Kingdom Hearts is interesting, especially with the Final Mix edition of the game. While the original had bonus fights that you can engage in, Kingdom Hearts Final Mix has much more to discover and complete, including some new cutscenes. You have optional boss battles against characters like the Ice Titan from Hercules, as well as Sephiroth himself, the legendary one-winged angel from Final Fantasy VII. But you also have some real deep cuts like Kurt Ziza, a machine that, while original, heavily resonates with people that watch the Aladdin TV series. The bonus fights are great to have, but I would have loved to have seen a lot more along the lines of optional side quests rather than more fights, or even another world to open up and explore. Because we already get so much from the Disney universe throughout the game, why couldn't we have another world focused on more Final Fantasy stuff outside of Hollow Bastion? It's something I always felt like was a missed opportunity, even though I understood the direction that Square Enix was going back then. Now, the additional bonus content of the first Kingdom Hearts game is pretty cool, a lot of people seem to really enjoy it, and it's been a thing that's stuck with the entirety of the series with every single game that's come out up to this point. However, one of my biggest gripes that I have with the bonus content of every single Kingdom Hearts game is that the difficulty tends to be really out of whack. In the first Kingdom Hearts game, you have a couple optional boss fights that you can discover both in the Colosseum and in a few other areas littered throughout the game. Because of a number of different things, and also because of the level requirements and other stuff that you really need to kind of prepare before you go into the boss fights, they are very restrictive and they're very unforgiving, to say the least. These are nice, cool additions to have with the game, and I think they're really cool fan moments and offer a lot of fan service for people that have stuck with either Disney or even Final Fantasy games as a whole. It's just something that I think is a nice, cool compliment and is additional bonus content to kind of throw out there for people, even though you might have already completed the main story. However, I really wish that there was even a little bit more there devoted just to the Final Fantasy stuff, because I felt like with the entirety of Kingdom Hearts 1, you got so much Disney-oriented stuff that there should have been a little bit more Final Fantasy injected into there. But that's just me and my personal opinion. I know a lot of people love the Bell Tower fight in Neverland, as well as also the Kurt Zizza fight, which is kind of like a little bit based off the Aladdin cartoon. But I would have rather taken some more Final Fantasy optional boss fights, even some other nods, including where's the nods for the Chocobos? Like, that's something that I always thought was weird. We got the Moogles throughout, but we never got a Chocobo in this game. The closest you get is to that one drawing of a Chocobo in the cave back on Destiny Islands. I really enjoy the first Kingdom Hearts game. It's an experience that stuck with me for many years. Again, I've been there since the beginning, and I've always felt like I really enjoyed my time playing that game for the first time on PlayStation 2. But even revisiting it now, again, for the final mixed version and all the additional extra content that came afterwards, I still think it's an experience that holds up and one that everybody should play at some point when they can. Whether you're a hardcore JRPG fan or even a casual RPG fan, I feel like there's something in the first Kingdom Hearts game that you'll really enjoy, whether it's the characters, the music, the locations, the gameplay. There's something there for everybody. And even with all the convoluted stuff that came afterwards with its story and the series, I still feel like Kingdom Hearts 1 is grounded enough to really kind of give you a complete experience and really kind of satiate your appetite for something more afterwards. Now, don't get me wrong, it's not perfect by any stretch of the imagination. Like I mentioned earlier, there's some stuff with the platform and a few other things here and there that are a little bit more nitpicky, but overall as a package, Kingdom Hearts 1 definitely delivers. So with that being said, that's my thoughts on Kingdom Hearts, guys. I really hope you enjoyed this video review. Again, leave me a comment down below, leave me a like on this video, subscribe to the channel if you can. Tell me some of your guys' favorite characters from the Kingdom Hearts franchise, or even some of your favorite worlds from the very first Kingdom Hearts game. I'm really curious to see what you guys put into the comment section. I'll be looking in there, and I'll probably be talking with you guys in the comments down below. That being said, I will talk to all of you again very soon. Peace out, stay epic, everybody.